Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Semi Soccer Experts Podcast, also known as the C
See.
Podcast. All right, Adrian, what episode are we on?
31, my friend. We're 31 episodes strong.
Uh, I can't think of anything special about 31, but I can think about something special about 30. You know what it is?
What?
Liverpool, after 30 years, become champions of England for the first.
Hell frozen over? Well, it is 2020. Hell has pretty much frozen over. Coronavirus, fucking everything is going to the shitter. Like, Liverpool finally win their title.
Yeah, Liverpool win the title after beating Manchester City at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea beat Manchester City at Stamford Bridge 2-1. One of the goals was scored by Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, Captain America, even though he didn't do us any favors.
There's a funny conspiracy theory going on that it all started when Klopp and Pulisic worked together at
at Dortmund. Oh yeah, was Pulisic there at the time?
Pulisic was there. They had some.
So he was like 16, 17. He was like very young.
Yeah, he must have been young. There was a pit. That's what I thought too. But there's a picture going around there of Pulisic and him together.
So that's a conspiracy that he's a secret agent that was sent to Chelsea to, beat Manchester City in order for them to get the title.
Yep. And the other meme going around the internet is that Frank Lampard has won more
trophies than Gerrard.
For Liverpool than Steven Gerrard.
Steven Gerrard. But overall, as much as it pains me to say this, it's long overdue for Liverpool to win the title. You can tell for the last 2-3 years they've been very dominant in the Premier League. This is me talking non-biased, and it sucks because Fergie was famously saying that what he did at Manchester United is knock Liverpool off their fucking perch. And that was a thing. Liverpool were in a third. Granted, they did win a Champions League around like 05 against AC Milan, your buddies. And, they didn't win any leagues. They were close back, I think, in 09 and then like 2015 with Slippy G.
The Steven Gerrard slip, right.
Yeah. And with that, they could taste it. And then last year they lost, I think goal difference or something like that.
They lost on goal difference. Yes, they lost.
Yeah, so they lost on goal difference. So as a realist, it was bound to happen. And with Manchester United, we're not there yet. I say with the players, what they should do. Take all this in, see how they celebrate, and use that energy, to drive yourselves and get up there and win the league, because it's been almost a long time for us, almost 10 years since we last won the league. So 7 years to be exact, but still, it just pains me to see your rivals winning the title.
Right. So I think the biggest one of the bigger takeaways is like you said, this team is so dominant that they have the record of most games to spare.
Well, 7 games.
7 games to spare. The previous record was set by both Manchester teams at 5 games.
Yep.
So, like you said, this Liverpool team is very dominant. It's, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be saying, hey, this COVID situation, aided them or helped them or whatever. They're going to have an asterisk next to that title win of 19/20. They're going to have that, hey, they won the title, but the XYZ happened, which was the coronavirus situation.
Mm-hmm.
So financially speaking, they're doing pretty well.
They are.
They since they won the Premier League, they'll win all the prize money. All the sponsorship deals are going to be pouring in. Like we covered before, Nike already has a shirt deal with them.
Which was Nike's they're gonna customize or put like a logo Premier League, because it's been like 30 years.
I think there's still New Balance because of coronavirus. I think they ended up saying we're gonna stay with New Balance until whenever the season finishes.
Yeah, I think that's the whole ordeal, because I even saw on a social media post that There was a post celebrating Liverpool's victory, and New Balance, their social media account, was like applauding and like, yes, the champions, all that funny shit. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I guess they're trying to rep in as much money as they can and probably get like last minute Liverpool jerseys for, since
Absolutely,
they
I'm
won the
sure.
title.
And you know what's interesting is since there's still New Balance, you think they would manufacture more jerseys if possible? Because again, we're in the middle of coronavirus.
They might
Whatever
as
the
well.
factories are probably either shut down or very limited activity.
Hmm.
That's like one of my questions is like, all right, will they capitalize on this, knowing that they still have 7 game days worth of season for them to squeeze out? Because technically the season's not done yet.
Yeah. Not, yeah, because there's still a top four race. And that's a big thing going on, as other than like Liverpool winning the title. And not even a top four, because we still don't know if City are going to be in the Champions League next year. So
Yeah,
all in all, that can potentially be a top five race.
I think
Given
I think the court decision was going to be done on the end of July.
it could be, but I think the Premier League's still going to finish before then. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks going on, well, going forward, because there's still a lot of games to be played with, and City still has,
There's 7 games to be played.
yeah, 7 games.
Well, there's not going to be it's not going to be done by the end of July, assuming that they have to play twice a week.
It could be. I don't know, because the schedule's been very different now, because like you said, they're playing twice a week. So,
Are they playing twice a week?
essentially, yeah, because United just played last Friday, and then they just played yesterday on Wednesday. So that's within the week, and they play again. Well, and the other thing too, I forgot now. I think it may go past July, because the FA Cup is back this week. So a lot of the FA Cup fixtures are going to be going on during this weekend.
Right. So they definitely still have to. They
And
have
and the FA Cup is still like in like I'm not the infancy stages, but I think 32 or 16, one of those rounds.
oh,
So
they're still right because the coronavirus happened in March.
yeah, and and it's a long tournament, FA Cup, because you got everyone, their moms playing from the English sides. So once that concludes, I feel like it's gonna be an interesting way to see how it ends, because that's another tournament that anybody can win, given how the layoffs happen and everything.
Right. And I think now that you mentioned FA Cup, I think the championship and League One, League Two begin functioning again, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but and not even that, the French league is starting to get return as well. Neymar and company from PSG are starting
Oh,
training.
they're starting to train. The season hasn't started. They
No,
start
no, no. But that's what I'm saying, because they're still in the Champions League. So I was like, they have to, get their shit together and start like
have to get back.
training again.
They have about a month's time to get in shape, which I think for professional athletes is enough time to get into game shape. Just to recap what we said last week, it's you either gonna be, fresh or you're gonna be rusty.
Hmm.
So it's one of those two.
Rusty.
We'll see. I mean, I think they're gonna be more fresh, honestly, because I think Mbappe and Neymar definitely know what's at stake. But
Hmm.
all right, anything else touching the Premier League? I saw a lot of everybody congratulated Liverpool, all the social media team.
Everybody except Manchester United.
I did see City. I saw Tottenham. I saw Chelsea. I'm sure Arsenal put something out. Definitely, Arsenal has to congratulate them because they would have lost their invincible title.
Yeah, definitely. They were close too, and that's a scary thing. They were really close, except thanks to what's it, City and
Watford,
Watford. Yeah, Watford beat them. So with those two losses, obviously ended their streak of like consecutive games in a row that they won within the Premier League. So it's interesting too, and I think they might actually. I think they have the potential to break the record that City did a couple years ago, over 100 points.
yeah, they probably do have the potential to beat the points, but no one cares so much about the points.
Yeah, and I think now since they won the title, I don't think they're gonna take it as competitively as they They're out of the Champions League. I think they're out of FA Cup too. So that's pretty much it for them.
They might be. I think they are out of FA Cup. All right, Adrian. Anything else you want to add on club level soccer or Premier League?
As of now, no. But I love Premier League back. I think when we last recorded, we were just starting to get the whiff of like Premier League returning, as long with Serie A. And I'm just grateful that we have the leagues back during the summer. Because granted, during this time it's supposed to be like the international tournaments, the Euro, and the Copa America is supposed to be on. But we had now club soccer, which is a good substitute. I'm not complaining. And just hopefully, and MLS with their tournament is going to be really intriguing. I should be on the lookout for that. It's going to kick off in 2-3 weeks, so definitely another thing to look out for.
All right.
But
MLS is starting mid-July, right?
yeah, July 11th, I believe. But now that we're talking about like tournaments and all that, another breaking news that we were mentioning about is the Women's World Cup. The upcoming World Cup in 2023 is supposed to be a battle between Colombia and Australia along with New Zealand. They're sharing it like what I think was I'm trying to remember pretty much what the USA, Mexico, and Canada are doing for 2026.
A joint bid.
Splitting it off together.
So yeah, the gist of it is the Colombia and Australia, New Zealand had a joint bid to host the FIFA 2023 World Cup, and the voting concluded today, and unfortunately they awarded the tournament to Australia and New Zealand, which is, I'm not, as a Colombian, I'm not bitter that Australia and New Zealand got it. Well deserved, if we're talking about the issue of women's rights and the place in the world where women are, mind you, me and you are not experts on this issue, but I'd say that Australia and New Zealand are more progressive in the matter than Colombia or Latin America. Now, Colombia and Latin America as a whole, I think, not without being biased, Colombia has made the most progress, but there is a movement going on in Latin America to give women's more rights, to respect women's autonomy, and all the things that encompass feminism and all that stuff. Colombia has had a pretty decent professional league for women going on. They have a couple players also playing in Europe, and they get a lot of players going to play in Division I soccer in the United States. Regarding Division I soccer, when we were at St. John's, I'm pretty sure there was a player at the St. John's women's team that she was called up for the Ecuadorian national team to play in the World Cup or to qualify. I think one of the qualifying games for the World Cup. 2015 was Canada.
Yeah, it was Canada, I believe.
Canada, the USA won that one. 2011 was, do you remember what 2011?
Japan.
2011 was Japan?
Well, I know they won it.
Japan won, beat the United States. I just don't remember where 2011 was hosted.
Yeah. Well,
I think it was Germany.
All right. Like European.
All in all, Colombia lost this bid. So, FIFA's big thing is to grow the women's game, correct? Like, this is something that they've always talked about.
Yeah, because in all actuality, they're starting to take it serious now because they could see the money that's coming in with all the advertisements and everything that's going on with women's rights. I feel like it's perfect time for FIFA to be like, hey, we could actually make some money off of this.
Right. So
there you go.
And like you say, everything is about money, but let's take the money to the side. Let's just say that they're really about their statement and the progression of women's rights.
Let's see.
Right, the progression of the women's game. And again, this is not a knock to New Zealand or Australia, but the status of women in those two countries, they're better off than they are in Latin America. Having a FIFA Women's World Cup in Latin America would be much more impactful for
it definitely would,
for football in general and for women's rights and feminism. You're giving Latin America, you could say Latin America and Europe, who loves the game more, that's
that's a debate that could go for days.
Yeah, that's a debate could go for right, but Latin America is the world's hot zone for football. To not give them a World Cup yet, to not give Latin America a World Cup yet, you're backwards. It's ridiculous because again, you go back to FIFA's statement. We want to help grow the world's game. Okay, you're going. People would say, "Oh, but Australia and New Zealand doesn't have a World Cup." Right, but now let's look at it at a cultural aspect. Australia and New Zealand are more similar to Europe. You know, they are white. Without trying to be, without trying to talk about race, they are white. Their culture is more in par with the European culture. You know, so when something happens in Europe, they identify with it.
Yep.
So when the Women's World Cup was already in Europe, and I'm pretty sure it was Germany, you know, they identify with it. That's why they have the progressive rights for women because they identify with what Europe does. And not to
Yeah.
say,
Hmm.
sorry to cut you off, but not to say that Australia and New Zealand are independent of Europe, but there's a connection there. Now, mind you, Latin America doesn't have that connection with Europe. Latin America has not had a FIFA Women's World Cup. Mexico has not had a FIFA Women's World Cup. We've had World Cups, men World Cup, but now the next step is to have the Women's FIFA World Cup.
No, I hear you. I totally agree with what you're saying. There's a lot of differences in regards to how developed to like parts of Latin America compared to like Australia and like that part of the world. I do believe that if Colombia was given, won, the rights to host the tournament, it would have been a game changer, especially for not just Latin America, but just for like a lot of kids, especially little girls who can see a lot of players who they never seen or heard of before and be like, hey, they're playing, right there. It's in my hometown, especially in Colombia. That I feel like that would have been a great like spark to like their, the amount of people who want to vast or get more influence into the world of soccer because it is growing and the women's game is just getting stronger and much it has the potential to be just as on par with the men's if done right. So I do believe that it sucks that Colombia didn't win it, and and it's crazy because I was telling you before we went live that essentially there's 35 members who get to vote on this, and obviously they're all broken down to each region. Each region has like their certain allocated amount of representatives, and they accumulate up to 35. So obviously Australia had they voted for themselves, and with the other organizations out there in Asia, Asian Federation, Oceania, they obviously voted for Australia because they're like the neighbors. And in regards to Colombia, UEFA actually, gave them votes. They voted for them because they was like, hey, you know what? We'll go with this. Let's try Colombia, something different. And obviously Comembo because it's where the soccer is. One thing I was disappointed is CONCACAF though. Our friends here in the United States and all the neighboring countries actually voted for Australia, which, and I told you too that Sunil Gulati voted for Australia for a reason I don't know, maybe just to give more money up his ass. Um, and Africa as well. I think a majority of them went for Australia as well. So it kind of sucks, and that's the way it is. The voting procedures, but I feel like maybe hopefully this is a wake up call, or maybe Colombia should not give up yet because there's still a lot more World Cups coming through. Maybe
Right.
2027
I
or
don't.
further down the future.
This is. I mean, this won't be the end of it. But regarding the Concacaf thing, it's like we've talked about this in previous episodes where CONCACAF is trying to fight CONMEBOL for the rights for the Copa America.
Yeah.
And I think was it earlier this year or
Last year, I think.
last year in the middle of the year, whatever, that they were arguing about who can host the Copa America, and the only reason is because CONCACAF wants that because it's a cash cow.
Yep.
And CONMEBOL did not budge, which rightfully so. It's not their tournament. If CONCACAF wants something to do with the Copa America, they have to go by what CONMEBOL does because that's our tournament. And I genuinely believe that the CONCACAF voted as a block to give Australia the tournament just to spite CONMEBOL because they know that if Commonwealth gets this tournament, they're going to make more money. And if we break it down to numbers, the United States has a lot of Latin American population. When if the tournament is hosted in a Latin American country, the people in the United States, the Latin Americans in the United States, are going to take more interest in that tournament. You would agree with me with that, because like I'm Mexican, right? I'm in the United States. I normally don't watch the Women's World Cup, but it's being played in a Latin American country. Okay, I'm Mexican. I can relate to Colombians. I can relate to Argentinians. We speak the same language. I don't relate as much
similar cultures and everything that goes along with it.
We have the similar. It's a similar culture, so the interest is going to go way down. That means TV revenue is not going to be as high. Sponsorship revenue is not going to be high. Jersey sales aren't going to be as high.
Mm-hmm.
But CONCACAF honestly only did this to spike CONMEBOL, or they got paid off. And you mentioned Africa. Okay, Africa voted for Australia. Well, Africa, I can't see them favoring one nation over the other. I'd say Africa's just closer to South America, but that's about it. So again, it's like CONCACAF just wanted to mess with everybody, and
I think it was just pettiness on CONCACAF's end, to be honest.
I think it was pettiness.
It is, because the whole ordeal with Copa America going south, and they just couldn't reach a deal. I think they were just like, screw you guys. You know what? No, we'll vote for the other guys. But now going forward, though, even thinking about it too, like from our side of the region, since it's going to be in Australia, what time are these games even going to be played?
Well, that again, CONCACAF, it would have been in the same time zone.
Exactly. Like we would have games starting, because we're recording now 8 p.m. Be like, this is primetime games. More or less.
Right now in Australia, it should be 8 a.m.
Yeah.
It would work. It would work. The timeline isn't that bad. But
well,
I mean, for Americans,
I think we'll get a lot of early morning games similar to the last World Cup. Because it was in Russia, and there was like a lot of like 8 a.m. games that were featured. So more or less maybe that region a time, or even 7 a.m., which is crazy. Like I'll get up for 7 a.m. for Manchester United, but just to see a World Cup game that early as well, especially for teams that I'm not really that invested in, it's kind of tough to influence me and motivate me, just to get up that early. That's just me personally.
100%. No, you're right. I think that sentiment is shared by a lot of people here. But if you had the game at 8 p.m., majority of people are on their couch watching TV. It's soccer. Who cares if it's women's soccer? It's soccer. They're going to watch it.
Yeah.
They're going to be interested. The kids, it's a summer tournament, so the kids are going to be out of school, hopefully. They'll watch it, but it's a lot easier for a kid to say, hey, I want to see what mommy and daddy are watching, than I'm just going to tune into soccer on my own. So it spites us. And the last point I want to make, and FIFA has always a committee to review the country, to review the stadiums, to review this XYZ. Out of the bidding nations, I think there was another nation Japan was a bidding nation as well, but they withdrew.
Yeah, I think they did, because that's something I heard about in the news as well. Colombia
actually ranked the lowest in the infrastructure of the stadium, which is okay, fair. It's a developing nation. It doesn't have the resources that Australia, New Zealand, or Japan would have. Fair. But that clearly doesn't impact its ability to host a tournament. Colombia has hosted the Copa America in 2001, was going to host the Copa America 2020, and hosted a
you guys were supposed to host the Copa America. I just thought of that.
Right. And we hosted the FIFA U20 World Cup in 2011. Colombia also bid for the 2014 World Cup, but withdrew in 2009, which left Brazil as the only candidate. Okay. But that time, the only issue was because Colombia was going through some political turmoil, and unfortunately the domestic terrorism that goes on with the FARC and the guerrillas that stuff, that made FIFA uneasy about hosting the tournament. But they never talked about the infrastructure. That wasn't. Sorry, that wasn't a problem. Now today, apparently the infrastructure is bad. Mind you, the majority of stadiums have been renovated or brand new because of the FIFA 20 World Cup
You mean Copa America?
and the Copa America.
Okay.
But these stadiums are modern, are new. They're not crumbling.
And I also was gonna say because Colombia is it's a decent sized country, and I'm pretty sure you guys got your good amount of like stadiums, throughout the region because obviously the professional teams.
To host a tournament. I
Yeah,
mean, we were supposed to host the 1986 World Cup, but
the
we
one in Mexico too.
that's why Mexico got it.
Shit, I was gonna say, yo, imagine Colombia hosting '86 during the whole
I mean
Drug
that
Wars.
the infrastructure was in place.
Yo, Maradona had a party. I'm sorry, I just had to say.
So, but again, and like, I'm not the one to blame everything on race, but a lot of people say, well, there was a lot of racism involved. They didn't want the World Cup in a Hispanic country. I was like, all right, whatever the case may be, if you put everything on paper, Colombia was definitely more than prepared to have this World Cup in Latin America. To have the first Women's World Cup in Latin America, and it would have done, I think, amazingly for the women's game in Latin America since FIFA is pushing it. But congratulations to Australia, congratulations to New Zealand. They deserve it. They have more progressive. They've done more for women's rights and women's life in those countries, so they deserve it as well. But again, not a knock to them, more of knock to FIFA and CONCACAF.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm saying. Like, granted, yeah, they won, and you can make an argument whether or not it was fair or square, because I still feel like to this day, even though the corruption has supposedly been sorted out of FIFA, I think it's still going on to this day.
There probably is still corruption. If it's not as widespread, or it's very, very low key.
On the low. That's what I think too, because it's just weird because seeing CONCACAF vote off a fellow country that's nearby to them, near and dear to them, I baffles me. I'm kind of surprised too with Africa, just for the sheer fact, it's just Colombia has like a lot of Afro Latino in there, so it's culturally pretty much culturally there essentially, way more of a tying connection than Australia
There's a
because
big
you can relate more.
in South America.
Yeah, exactly. And pretty much we like a lot of us, not all the African nations, but a good amount of African nations, we all eat like the same food anyway. So it's like the culture's there. But hey, it is what it is. But I do see Colombia, or if not Colombia, definitely a Latin American country hosting the World Cup going forward, the Women's World Cup going forward. And what would your pick if not Colombia in 2027, if you had an idea?
If I had an idea, based on what the women's game is like in South America, I'd say Mexico. I think Mexico is probably, they have a very strong league. They have their games would regularly turn out 20,000 fans. I think the America Chivas Clásico drew a sellout crowd for one of their games. So if you talk about that, I mean, yeah, I'd say Mexico. It's South America. Unfortunately, the situation for the feminist movement is not that good. Brazil has a very conservative dictator, I could say. In Argentina, they actually recently voted against the rights for abortion for women. Women were very able, or got the bill, I think, to whatever the equivalent of the Senate or the Congress is, and they were very close to having legal abortion, and then unfortunately it got knocked down. And then in Chile, last I checked, they had just recently, very recently, turned the women's game professional.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, because there's still a lot of Latin American countries that are still developing on that aspect. That really haven't treated women as the way they should be, as equal to men. which is really not that hard to do. But that's the thing when you have politics and all this bullshit aside, and a lot of people with their political agendas going on, which is why we're, as a Latin American, I feel like we're ass fucking backwards in regards to this. And personally, I feel like change should be done, especially with the whole Black Lives Movement going on. Not just for everyone who's just people of color, but people who are being treated or who are oppressed. Use that anger and use that energy, to revolt against the powers that may be, because this is a changing time in 2020. Use that energy, and hopefully we can see a more positive aspect going forward. And that's my message.
100%. The women's game is growing, and especially the times that we are in now. Hopefully, like you said, everything for a positive change, and then this will carry on into football. All right, Adrian, enough about, I guess, that topic. Any other thing we need to talk about?
Yeah, one thing that came across the USL. Since we're semi-soccer experts, we obviously love to talk about the bigger leagues. But a lot of people give shine to USL and like the divisions below, in regards to like what's going on with them. So the USL is the league below MLS, and what they're gonna do is a similar structure in regards to their season. They're returning on July 11th, contrast to MLS. And since they have like a whole different teams and like different regions, like where all the teams, because they're all scattered around the US. So it's divided into 8 groups. You have 5 groups of 4 teams and 3 groups of 5 teams. And all the groups are within their region. That's what I'm assuming. And starting then, and this actually goes all the way till October 2nd. So this is like a long ass World Cup type of ordeal. And I don't think even a World Cup. I would say more of a Champions League type of ordeal within the USL, because you're going for so much time. So this starts from July, and then after all the teams play each other, the top 2 teams automatically advance, and then it goes into around the 16, and then after that it's knockout, and from there you determine a winner, which I feel like is interesting. And I gotta remember how USL is broadcast. I think they are on ESPN like Plus.
They're on ESPN Plus. Yep, correct.
So that's another viable thing to get. And ESPN Plus is so dirt cheap. It's only $5.99. So it's definitely something you should check out and support your local team, because this is something that's not just the MLS tournament. It's the cool thing going on, but USL is definitely something. You see the new up and coming players who we may see in MLS in a couple of years from now.
Correct. So yeah, USL. So the interesting thing the very important about the USL is that I don't think they operate on a franchise model. All the teams are individually owned.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like the league can dictate what's going on. They actually have to have a vote between the owners. The league, MLS said, "Hey, we're going to Orlando," and everybody's like, "Pack your bags, we're going to Orlando." So it's a very interesting thing, because when you have the MLS, you share your resources.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that you can't really knock American sports model, is that in times of crisis, no one's gonna go under.
Yep.
So the problem with owning your club is that you're 100% responsible for everything. I'm sure people at the Philadelphia Union, they don't generate a lot of revenue, but they can count on the league to make sure they don't go bust.
Yep. And that's the only, I think that's one of the only positive things about MLS and like most of American sports, is that they do take accountability, and they look out for each other to make sure no one goes bankrupt, because I think if it was the other way around, a lot of teams would have gone bankrupt or like sold their rights by now.
Correct. Yeah. So but I'm not 100% sure. I think they are individually owned. They might be franchises that like the MLS. That I do have to double check. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I think USL definitely needs to play. The league as a whole has been generating a lot of steam, a lot of interest in the United States. I don't know if they will ever surpass MLS, but they're definitely a viable second option of soccer, football in this country. And I think it's very important for them to keep playing because they need to keep that interest alive. They need to keep that momentum going.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. And USL has a new New York team, our boys at Queensboro FC. But they don't debut till next year. But it's still interesting to see how they form under this because it's with the whole COVID thing in their kickoff. They were hitting it high. So I hope that they still have their plans set up and everything is going good. When they start to kick off and have everything into fruition.
Right, 100%. It's gonna be interesting what QBFC does. I mean, supposedly they're supposed to start playing in 2021.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right, Adrian, I'm out of ideas. Did I miss anything? Did we talk about anything?
We essentially covered most of it. As of now, we're just in the middle of we're still in the middle of the pandemic, but like I said earlier, we have soccer back. I'm happy Premier League is back, even though given the results today, it is what it is. But we have La Liga, Serie A back. I'm just more curious to see how Champions League and the European competitions are going to take up because that's going to be really intriguing, especially with the whole setup now. It's in Lisbon, and the Europa League is going to be held, I think, in Germany, if I remember correctly. So it's definitely an interesting time, and we just got in the mid, we just touched summer, so this is going to be a summer for the ages. Granted, like I said, we were supposed to get the Euros and Copa America, but it's going to be pushed back to next year, which is actually not that bad coming to think about it because now we got all the clubs playing during the summer, and we got the domestic international tournaments next year. World Cup is literally 2 years away, so if everything falls into place, crazy as it may seem.
It should be a great summer.
Yeah, it is.
Adrian, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching.
Yes.
All right, guys, have a good night. And as always, episode 32 will be up soon. Have a good
Thank you guys for listening.